Being chosen by God is not just about receiving. It is also about losing, letting go, giving up. When the calling comes, God does not deliver everything at once. First, He clears the way. He removes what hinders, what weighs down, what holds back. And often, what He takes away hurts more than what He has not yet given. This process may seem confusing. You feel internal changes, people distance themselves, old thoughts lose strength. None of this is a coincidence. It is part of God's work. He is preparing the ground for something greater. And for that, certain things need to leave your life. Not as punishment, but out of care. God cleans before He builds. In this content, you will understand 11 things that God begins to remove when He chooses someone. Each of them brings a lesson, a deliverance, and a preparation. If any of these areas touch you, understand, God is working there. And if you want to keep receiving messages like this, which speak directly about purpose, healing, and identity, subscribe to the channel now. That way, you won't miss anything that is still to come. The invisible weight. Not every burden is visible. Sometimes what tires you the most is not outside, it is inside. Guilt, fear, shame, comparison. All of this keeps silently piling up. You live, work, smile, but something inside you always feels heavy. The body even keeps going, but the heart is dragging a suitcase that never seems to empty. This weight does not come all at once. It is formed over time. A cursed word here, a rejection there, a mistake that was never healed. Without realizing it, you start carrying memories that hurt and demands that paralyze. It becomes hard to trust, hard to believe, hard even to pray with freedom. God knows this. He sees what no one else sees. That is why, when He chooses you, He does not start by giving you something. He starts by taking things away. He removes the emotional debris, cleans the layers that have built up around your identity. And this cleansing is often done in silence, but with depth. You begin to notice internal changes. Situations that used to knock you down no longer affect you in the same way. That anguish that was constant begins to make room for a strange but good calm. It is God removing the stones from the backpack, one by one. He does not just want to see you walking, He wants you to run. This relief is not fantasy. It is real transformation. God does not call you to walk hunched over. He wants you whole, free, able to move forward with lightness. That is why, even if it hurts at times, even if you do not understand everything right away, what He is doing has a purpose, to make you light inside so you can live something new on the outside. Chains of the past. Some prisons have no bars. They have memories. Old traumas, words that wounded, repetitive cycles that seem to never end. The past has the power to hold someone in the same place for years. And often, the person does not even realize it. They just feel stuck, as if something pulls them back whenever they try to move forward. God knows each one of these chains. Some were created by mistakes you made, others by wounds that were inflicted on you. Some come from family, from stories that have repeated for generations. And the worst part, many people accept this weight as part of life. They learn to live with it, as if it were normal to feel pain every day. But God did not choose you to live trapped in what is already past. He enters where no one else enters. He goes to the root. He begins by showing you that that pain does not define who you are, that that old wound is not a sentence, and that you can indeed move forward without carrying all of that. That is where deliverance begins, when the Holy Spirit confronts you with truths that set you free. It is not a magical or immediate process, but it is firm, constant, loving. God begins to remind you that you are more than your story, that what wounded you no longer controls you, and that He has the power to break every chain. You begin to breathe differently, to see differently. What once held you no longer has the same strength. God reprograms you from the inside. He gives you courage to let go of what limited you. And He teaches you to live in freedom. He does not just set you free. He strengthens you so that you will never return to the cell from which you left. The need for approval. Living trying to please everyone is exhausting. You measure your words, force smiles, swallow what you feel just so you will not disappoint. And even then, you still feel insufficient. This constant search for approval is an invisible prison. It steals your authenticity, drains you emotionally, and makes you forget who you really are. God knows how much this imprisons you. That is why when He chooses you, one of the first things He begins to remove is this need for acceptance. He begins to teach you, little by little, that the only approval that truly matters is His. That being chosen by Him is already the seal of worth that the world can never give. This change begins on the inside. You begin to care less about criticism. You begin to realize that not every compliment defines you, and that not every rejection diminishes you. Your identity starts to be based on eternal truths, not on passing opinions. And this brings a freedom you may never have experienced before. Little by little, you stop trying to fit into places where you do not belong. You begin to say no more firmly. You begin to take a stand with more confidence. And you discover that pleasing everyone is not only impossible, it is unnecessary. What really matters is to walk with clarity before God, even if it bothers some around you. This transformation may cause distance. Not everyone will accept your change, but that is also part of the process. God distances those who kept you tied to a forced behavior, to a role that was not yours. And in their place, He puts people who love you for who you truly are, not for what they expected you to be. Misaligned relationships. When God chooses someone, He also reorganizes connections. Not everyone who started with you will continue on the journey. And often this has nothing to do with fights or mistakes, but with purposes that diverge. It is natural, but it hurts. It hurts because we like to be surrounded, to have company, to maintain bonds. But being chosen also means walking in directions that not everyone will understand. God knows that certain people cannot continue with you, because what He is going to do in your life requires a clean environment. He needs to protect what is being born in you. And therefore, He begins to distance what no longer adds up. Some distances come naturally, others feel like ruptures. But in all of them, there is a purpose. God does not remove out of cruelty. He removes out of zeal. Toxic relationships, negative influences, conversations that drag you away from focus. All of this begins to lose strength. It no longer fits. It no longer matches who you are becoming. You may even try to hold on, to force permanence, to insist on keeping it out of affection or history. But deep down, you feel that it is no longer possible. It is like wearing clothes that do not fit. It is not about rejection. It is about transition. God's calling narrows the path and filters who truly walks with you. Over time, you realize that you are not alone, that the true ones remain, that others arrive, and that the connections God allows are healthier, truer, and aligned. Relationships are not measured by quantity, but by direction. Those who walk with you in the right purpose strengthen you. Those who do not distract you. The world's patterns. From early on, we are taught to follow a model. Study, work, achieve, compete, win. This is the world's pattern. But when God chooses someone, He begins to break this mold. He shows that purpose is not in following the crowd, but in walking according to His direction. And this changes everything. God does not work with human formulas. He does not measure success by money or position. He measures by obedience, by surrender, by faith. And when you are chosen, He begins to remove the pressure to be like others. Comparison loses ground. The internal pressure begins to diminish, and your route becomes unique. Often this creates conflict. The people around you may not understand. They may think you are stuck, that you are wasting time, that you are falling behind. But little by little, you learn that following God's timing is better than running at the wrong time. And this awareness brings you peace. You begin to realize that you no longer need to prove anything, that your worth is not in what you accumulate, but in what you carry. And what you carry is identity. It is calling. It is a mission that does not fit into social labels. And the more you accept this, the lighter you become. The world will continue offering quick paths, empty promises, and distorted standards. But you will remain firm because you know your route is different. Being chosen is being set apart. It is being different, and it is okay not to walk like others, as long as you walk with God, because what He builds lasts. Insecurity. Insecurity is a silent prison. It makes you doubt everything, your choices, your ability, your worth. And when you are chosen by God, that inner voice becomes even more intense. Because the calling is scary, the mission seems bigger than you, and the fear of failing appears at every turn. God knows this fear. That is why He does not throw you straight onto the battlefield. First, He works on your inner being. Little by little, He removes the idea that you need to be perfect. He keeps reminding you that He is the one who enables, that you do not need to be ready. You just need to be available. He begins to show you in practice that it is possible, that with Him you will go, that what you do not have, He supplies, and that what you fear, He faces with you. Each small victory becomes a sign that it is possible to trust, not in yourself, but in the presence that accompanies you. Little by little, that voice that said, "You can't," loses strength, and another voice arises, firm and constant. "I am with you." This voice does not come from the outside, it comes from within. It is the Spirit of God reminding you that you are a child, that you were chosen, and that you were not called to be ruled by fear. Being chosen does not mean never feeling insecure again, but it means no longer being governed by it. It means moving forward even while trembling, speaking even while doubting, going even without seeing everything, because your confidence is not in yourself, but in the one who sent you. And that changes everything. God pulls out the root of fear and plants courage. The false identity. One of the first things God begins to remove when He chooses someone is the false identity. That image you created to survive, protect yourself, or please. It wasn't your fault. It was what you learned to be. But it's not who you really are. And to live the purpose, you need to return to your essence. The false identity can be subtle. It can hide behind forced smiles, repeated behaviors, phrases you learn to say just to avoid conflict. It can be in the way you present yourself, in the way you respond, even in the way you relate. It's the character you created to feel accepted. But when God chooses you, He wants the original, not the version molded by wounds. He begins to dismantle that character, piece by piece. And yes, this causes discomfort, because many times we no longer even know who we really are. We got so used to the mask that the real face scares us. It's just that God doesn't want you to live pretending. He wants to see you light, free, true. Authenticity is one of the greatest marks of those who are called. You no longer need to hide, nor please everyone, nor adapt to environments that force you to be who you are not. That is liberating. And yes, some people will distance themselves when your true version appears, because they related to the image, not the essence. But those who are real will remain, and those who distance themselves, in fact, never truly walked with you. God cleans the environment so that you can flourish safely. You begin to feel more whole. You begin to speak more clearly, to act more naturally, to make decisions that previously seemed risky, but now make sense. Because you finally understand your identity is safe in God, and it no longer needs to be built on fear, rejection, or pressure. This true identity starts changing everything. Your faith gains strength, your choices gain focus, and your life begins to move in a direction more consistent with who you were created to be. Being chosen is not becoming someone different. It is many times returning to being who has always been there inside, only covered. The influence of rejection. Rejection leaves marks that few see, but that deeply affect who you are. It may have come from a harsh word, an abandonment, a cold look, or years of trying to be accepted without success. The pain of rejection is not only emotional, it seeps into the way you see yourself. When God chooses someone, He does not ignore this wound. On the contrary, He goes straight to it. He begins to pull out the roots of rejection that prevent you from trusting, from giving yourself, from accepting true love. And this process is not light, but it is necessary, because no one can live the calling with a blocked heart. You may have gotten used to the idea of not being enough, and that made you accept less than you deserve, hide, be silent. But God comes like a father, with firmness and affection, to show that you were never rejected by Him, that your acceptance is not in human hands, but in His hands. He begins to heal the way you see yourself. He begins to show that rejection does not define you, that no that hurt so much was not the end, and that the people who left you have no authority to determine your worth. Your worth was given by the one who created you. This healing reflects in everything. You begin to take a stand more firmly. You begin to value yourself without guilt. You stop accepting crumbs in any area of life. God did not choose you to walk with your head down. He chose you to lift your head and walk as a child, not with arrogance, but with a healed identity. Sometimes it will still hurt to remember, but it no longer hurts like before. Because now you know that you are no longer trying to be accepted. You already have been. And that changes the way you relate, the way you express yourself, even the way you pray. Rejection no longer guides you. God's acceptance is your foundation. Being chosen does not mean that you were never rejected. It means that rejection no longer has the power to stop you. What was once a wound is now a testimony, and that shows that God not only called you, He also restored you from within, so that you can live the purpose without fear of being yourself. Comparing yourself to others. Comparing yourself is a silent addiction. You look at what the other has, what the other does, what the other has achieved. And without realizing it, you begin to feel smaller. This sucks your energy, steals your gratitude, and makes you question your own worth. But God, when He chooses you, begins to break this logic. The first step is to show you that you have a unique path. That your story does not need to follow anyone's pace. That the time of others does not define yours. This takes a huge weight off your shoulders, because now you can focus on what you were called to live, and not on what others expect. You stop measuring yourself by numbers, positions, visibility. You begin to see value in invisible processes, in internal changes, in small steps that only you understand. Comparison begins to lose strength. because you understand that you are under construction, and that each phase, even slow, has an essential role. God reminds you that what He is doing in you is exclusive. That is why it does not make sense to compare yourself. There is no reference outside of you for what He wants to do within you. When you understand this, a new security is born, not arrogant, but firm. And that changes everything. You begin to celebrate others' victories without feeling that you are losing. You begin to rejoice in your own journey, even if it seems simple in the eyes of others. Comparison is replaced by contentment, and contentment brings strength to continue, without haste, without fear, without crisis. Being chosen is not running faster, it is running at the right pace. It is understanding that the calling has its own time. God breaks comparison not to isolate you, but to free you. Because when you stop looking to the sides, you finally see clearly what is right in front of you. The mindset of scarcity and defeat. Many people live with the feeling that something will always be missing. Lack of time, lack of support, lack of money, lack of strength. And this feeling becomes a way of thinking. The person begins to believe that they will never have enough, that they are always behind, that they were not born to win. This is the mindset of scarcity. When God chooses someone, this mindset needs to go, because it does not match the calling. He begins by showing that your provision does not depend on circumstances, nor on people, nor on bank accounts. God sustains the chosen with resources that are not limited to the natural. He makes it spring from the unlikely, raises doors where there was no wall. The change begins in the mind. Little by little you stop thinking like someone who is merely surviving. You begin to believe like someone who was set apart to accomplish something great. This is not about exaggerated riches or easy promises. It is about inner peace, about trust in God's daily care, about confidence in what He has called you to do. The mindset of scarcity is replaced by a renewed mind. You learn that you already carry within you what you need to start. God gives you wisdom to multiply, sensitivity to perceive opportunities, and courage to get out of inertia. The fear of not having is replaced by faith in a God who does not fail. You may even face difficult moments, but the difference is that now you know scarcity is not your end. God is the source, and if He chose you, He will provide. Defeat is not identity. It is just part of the journey. You no longer walk with the mindset of someone who loses, but with the vision of someone who carries a promise. The voice of doubt. Doubt usually appears at the moments when you most need to be firm. It does not shout, it whispers. And this whisper enters the heart like poison. Was it really God who chose me? Do I have enough? Did I understand correctly? These questions steal peace, stall decisions, and weaken faith. When God chooses someone, He does not ignore this voice. He confronts it. He begins to silence, with love and firmness, everything that tries to destabilize the calling. He brings confirmations, sends words, places signs along the way, not to prove anything to Himself, but to strengthen you, who need to learn to trust. The voice of doubt always tries to paralyze you before something important. It does not want to convince you to give up everything just today, just trying one more time. But God reminds you, whom He calls, He sustains. And when He gives direction, He also gives clarity, even if the path still seems dark. Over time, doubt begins to lose ground. Not because everything became easy, but because you begin to recognize God's voice more clearly. You remember the times when you thought it would not work, and it did. You remember the promises that seemed distant, and they were fulfilled. This shapes consistent faith. Being chosen is not living without doubt. It is learning not to be guided by it. God does not expect you to have all the certainties. He only expects you to obey, even when the mind wavers. When doubt is strong, remember what He has already done, and go on. Because whom God calls, He confirms, step by step. When God begins to take things out of your life, it's because something new is being prepared. It may not seem like it at first, because emptiness is scary. Silence weighs, distance hurts, but all of this is part of a reconstruction. God does not remove out of cruelty. He removes for purpose. Nothing is removed without reason. Everything He took away had a function: to make room, to take off the weight, break chains, heal wounds, restore identity, reorder the mind. God cleans in order to plant. He pulls out the old to bring what truly draws you closer to purpose. And in this process, you begin to understand that being chosen is not about ease. It is about transformation. You may be in the middle of this process now. You may be seeing doors close, people leave, certainties unravel. This is not an end. It is preparation. God is removing what hinders to reveal who you really are. And believe me, the freedom that comes after this is something no human achievement can offer. This content is not about theory. It is about reality. It is about what many people live in silence, thinking they are wrong, when in fact they are being shaped by God. If any part spoke to you, it is because He is touching exactly where it needs to change. And if it is hurting, it is because it is healing. From here on, walk with more awareness. Pay attention to what God is showing you to let go of. Obey when He begins to remove. Not everything needs to be understood immediately, but everything can be lived by faith. He knows what He is doing, and He knows why He chose you. If you have come this far, and something has become clear to you, leave your comment below. Share in one sentence what God has already begun to remove from your life. This can strengthen other people who are also going through the process. And remember, what is leaving today is only the sign of everything that is about to be born.